All right, all right, all right. Welcome to a very special episode of Pan-African Perspectives. I see that my screen is frozen, but hopefully you guys can hear me. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me. Let me know that you can hear me. I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. And could you guys hear that video? I want to make sure that you guys can hear the video and you guys can hear me. So give us a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear us. I am your host, Joe Hatagwa, the founder of Authentic African. And our goal is to help people do one of three things: visit, move, and invest in Africa. This is a new day and time for us because we do have a special guest, a registered agent for the Citizenship by Investment program in Sierra Leone, and he is going to talk to us a bit about it. But if you guys could hear that video and could hear me, make sure you give a thumbs up in the chat. Just want to make sure I get those thumbs up in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from as well. So as you guys know, over the last 4 weeks, we've been talking about citizenship on the continent of Africa. Okay, many people said you couldn't hear that video. I apologize for that, guys. But basically in the video, you saw that they talked about the program itself. We'll go through that today with Maurice, our guest. He will walk through the requirements. So we'll get to all of that. So don't worry, if you couldn't hear the video earlier, you will be able to hear directly from Maurice, one of the folks who is helping people go through this process in Sierra Leone. So again, we've been talking about citizenship on the continent of Africa in a number of different areas. We talked about residency in Burkina Faso. We talked about the citizenship program that was opened, shut, and then reopened again in Ghana. We talked about the citizenship by accession program in Sierra Leone, which had been on pause. We will see if that opens up again. All indications say that it will. And so there's a trip happening in April. So we're hoping that people can get their citizenship there. And then there is this program, the Citizenship by Investment program, that we wanted to make sure we gave you guys the details on. I've done a reaction video to this before. And now we have an agent here who actually spoke to the program architect. So that's what you saw in that video. So without further ado, I'm going to bring our guest on. So our guest is Maurice. Maurice, welcome to the live stream. How you doing?
Hey, Joe, good. And you?
I'm doing well. A little bit of technical difficulties here on the live stream, but that's how it goes. But I'm excited to have this conversation with you because back about 7 or 8 months ago, I did a reaction to that video there. And I said, this program is real, and in the very beginning, there wasn't any indication on any of the websites in Sierra Leone that this program had been announced and launched. And those of us who had been talking about the Citizenship by Accession program, we're trying to understand, is this replacing that program? Is it the same program? Are there differences? And so there were a lot of questions that people were asking me. And so that video that I had done at that time was to ensure that people were aware that this is a real program, right? And so in the subsequent months, you and I have gotten a chance to speak, and we agreed to do this live stream so that people can hear directly from you about the program. And also get a chance to ask their questions about the program. There are a lot of questions, and I also put together a significant number of questions that I wanted to ask you about the program, so that those who are thinking about this, who happen to qualify, which we'll talk about what the qualifications are, and those who are interested in the different citizenship programs across the continent can be aware of what's available to them. So before we get into the program itself, I probably makes sense to get into a little bit about who you are, Maurice, and your brand, The Wandering Investor. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at The Wandering Investor? I know it's not just Africa, it's around the world, but I think it might be interesting for people to kind of hear a little bit more about, your background and what you're up to outside of just this program.
Sure. So a little bit of background: studied in Canada, then studied in Australia for my master's degree, and then started a corporate career with Nestle. Their headquarters in Switzerland, and then I was sent for 4 years to Johannesburg, and then I spent 3 years in Ghana. So in Accra, I was on the executive board of Nestle Ghana, in charge of the milk business. So Nido, which I'm sure a lot of your audience knows if they've traveled in West Africa. in charge of NIDO for Ghana, for Cote d'Ivoire, for Liberia, and Sierra Leone as well. So I did that for 3 years. At the age of 30, I left, and now it's been almost a decade that I travel around the world full-time, managing my own money. And then after a while, people started asking me, Ladislas, Maurice, you're always in these strange countries, but you don't seem to like have a job. So I started a blog initially just talking about real estate in frontier markets and emerging markets. People started reaching out, so I started writing more, started a YouTube channel. And now it's been a number of years that we help people invest in real estate in emerging markets, mostly all over Latin America, Eastern Europe, the Balkans, Asia, the Middle East, and now increasingly Africa as well. And we help people obtain second residencies and second citizenship. So that's how we came to become licensed agents for the Sierra Leone Citizenship by Investment program, and then also the Sao Tome Citizenship by Investment program.
Nice. I think that's a good background, so everybody gets a little bit of understanding of who you are and where you come from and what you do. And I think it's important that we know that it's not just Africa, but Africa, obviously, you spend some time on the continent, so that's important. Now, the Citizenship by Investment program. In that video, you were talking to the program architect. Can you give us a little bit about? He did mention his background in that video. Can you help us understand a little bit about who he is and how this program came to be?
Yeah, so he's an immigration specialist in Hong Kong, originally British and Australian. He's been just doing a lot of Hong Kong residency for the past decades. And then through his contacts in Sierra Leone and in West Africa, he came across this opportunity, pitched it to the authorities. They liked the idea to make an official citizenship by investment program. They gave him the master agency to run with it, the concession, and then he's been implementing that. And then we, as licensed agents, help promote and process applications.
Got it. Okay, cool. And so now let's get into the program a little bit itself. One of the things that came up a lot was the difference between this program and the Citizenship by Accession program. And for a little bit of background, for those of you guys who are watching for the first time and are unaware, Sierra Leone had launched the Citizenship by Investment program at around the same time that there was an accession program. The accession program was one that required DNA from Sierra Leone originally. It was about 4K. You had to make a trip to Sierra Leone and you would get citizenship by going through a process. You got, if you found out you were a Mende, you would get a Mende name. If you found out you were from the Timni tribe, you get a Timni name. You had to have taken the African ancestry test, and you pay the 4K and you get your citizenship. Under this recent change, they said that you'd have to do 2 trips. The price is the same. You'd have to do 2 trips. But that second trip was paused in December of last year, in October, even though the trip was planned for December. So just to bring everybody up to speed, that's a brief and short version of it. If you want to know more, you can go back to the channel and watch more videos on the details of how it got to that point. But that's where we are. Can we talk about a little bit about how different this program is from that Citizenship by Assessment program, accession program, sorry?
Yeah, so there are 2 routes to do the Sierra Leone Citizenship by Investment program. The first one is the main route. That's for everyone except for people of African heritage. It is $140,000 for a single applicant. So you make a straight up donation, $140,000. You pay an extra $5,000 in due diligence fees, and then you can add dependents. So if they're your wife, $10,000, your children under the age of 18, your parents or your grandparents, $10,000 a pop. If you want to add the wider family, such as children below the age of 30, more wives in case you're Muslim, or your brothers and sisters, and then also the spouses of your brothers and sisters, then those people are an extra $20K per person. And if you want to add a business partner, so someone that is unrelated to you, you can add a single business partner or a friend for an extra $30,000. So the idea with this program is that if you want to bring the whole clan, you can. So that's the first route. The second route is if you're of African descent, any African descent. It does not have to be of Sierra Leonean descent. You can be African from another part, Central Africa, East Africa, wherever. You need to prove it through a DNA test, or if you already have an African passport, that's good enough. In that case, it's only $100,000 for the main applicant, and then all the extra people, same costs.
Got it. And so that's the main difference, right? I mean, these two programs have a higher threshold. It is a citizenship-by-investment program versus the other one was specifically based on descent from the continent, and it's through a different ministry too. So the citizenship by ascension program was through monuments and relics. This program is through which particular ministry again within Sierra Leone?
It's directly with the immigration department.
So this is with immigration directly. So it is completely two different programs. There is a question, I think it's a relevant one, and it's an interesting one. Before we move on, somebody asked the question, because Botswana has been talking about a citizenship program and Benin had a separate citizenship program, can you speak to why you are focused on Sierra Leone and Sao Tome and Principe, by the way, as the other two? Botswana and Benin, why not those two as well?
Cool, good question. Before, I'd like to go also and explain this whole process can be done entirely remotely. Okay. Unlike the one where you have to go twice and the dates are, changing and a little uncertain, and then you have to go down for a week and it's a bit last minute. This is entirely remote. You pay the money, and within 5 to 6 months, you get your passport and your citizenship. So just to make the difference clear. Now, in terms of Benin and Botswana has announced that they are in talks to launch a citizenship by investment program. They were supposed to launch in Q1 at some point. We're still waiting. So it's not clear whether it will launch at all, or maybe it will, but it seems to be taking a bit of time. The one in Benin is a bit similar to the one in Sierra Leone for people of African heritage, but you have to go there, and the process is quite messy in Benin. The interface is beautiful, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people are getting their passports these days.
Got it. So that's a good point. And I think that's another good point in terms of the distinction and the difference. As you mentioned, the citizenship by investment program can be done completely remote, and it's done online, right? Whereas the other programs do require you to go in person. So depending on budgetary constraints, you choose which way you decide to go. Now, you did mention that there are two methods for the citizenship by investment program. So again, people of African descent can go through that process as well. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, because we're focusing on Pan-Africanism here, I'm thinking that's the part that I'm focusing on, right? Is those people of African descent. I'm focusing on, let's say maybe Black millionaires in America, people who are high net worth individuals of African descent in the diaspora. That's where I would focus. Anything outside of that would not be where my focus is on my platform, but knowing that this is available to other people, I think is one of the things that is of concern for other folks. And I see a comment there actually specifically speaking to that. Now, one of the concerns that I saw, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but there's a question on, does this program, or is this program the reason for the pause of the other citizenship by accession program? What are your thoughts on that? And do you have any ideas on if that is the case?
I really don't know. It's, as you mentioned earlier, it's two different departments. Are they, disagreeing on certain things? I really don't know, to be completely frank with you. It could be, it could not be. It could just be that there were issues with the normal kind of descendant program. I don't know.
Fair. I think there definitely has been speculation as to that. We are waiting to hear back from them on when that program will come out of this phase of being paused. It is one that does come up a lot. I think that
But
there's a yeah.
like the target markets are very different. You're either looking at people that have the time and last minute time to go twice to West Africa.
No, I'm here. Sorry, my network's going in and out, but we're still here, so feel free.
Or you're looking at people that just have the money to just pay and sign some documents, transfer the money or the crypto, and then they get the passport without having to go there. So the two are completely different target markets ultimately. The people that a lot of people would want to do it, but they just don't have the time. There's no, especially for Americans. I mean, Americans work long hours. Americans are not known to be lazy people. And you don't have a lot of vacations in the United States. So suddenly when you're told, oh, you have like 3 weeks to make it to Sierra Leone and to go there for a full week-long tour, that's not the same person than the person paying $100,000 and then just gets it delivered by FedEx.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because that is an interesting distinction. Now, many of the people who have subscribed to the channel, who follow the channel, have gone through that program. Let's talk about who the person is that this is targeted towards, and maybe we can even just stick to those folks who might be high net worth people of African descent. But what does that person look like? Why would they choose citizenship in Sierra Leone if they don't want to go through that 1 week trip, maybe get the naming ceremony, get adopted by a family locally, because that's kind of all that comes along with that. What does this other group, what would be of interest to them with a program like this?
Yeah, look, heritage and access to Africa. So I think we can all agree it's nice to be connected to where you're from. And this is one way of doing it. If you don't have time, you can't go there, you pay, you get it. And then most importantly, you get access to West Africa through ECOWAS. So if you want to go do business then in Ghana, in Nigeria, I think we all know how annoying it is to get a visa for Ghana specifically. This solves all of the problems. So it's also for business people that want to do business in West Africa. And this is also valid for, I saw the comment on people of non-African heritage that are going through the program. Who's doing it? I think it's an interesting conversation to have. When we spent about 2 weeks in Sierra Leone in November. We were part of a delegation of agents, of applicants, of new citizens, and of prospective potential applicants. And for 2 weeks, we went around. We met with government officials. We visited the city. We met the immigration people. We met the Minister of Tourism. We went to Parliament. We met some religious leaders. We met some fund managers that are doing some venture capital in Sierra Leone. And it was interesting to see who's actually applying for this. And the delegation was mostly American and German. And we're looking at, and it wasn't just random profiteers. We're looking at mostly Westerners so Europeans and North Americans, but more specifically Europeans that see that the continent is in decline. In Europe, I'm from Europe, we have a lot of issues. We have poor demographics. We have high debt levels. Our economies are not, they haven't been reformed forever. We have a lot of social tension. We have now war on the continent again. So a lot of people see the writing on the wall, and then they see that, Africa's rising. If you're objective, if you're honest with yourself, and if you don't just spend your time looking at CNN that likes to show poor people because, that's what's interesting to that's what gets views. We all know, people that spend time on the ground, that the continent is changing. Things are getting better year after year. I mean, typically it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but still 2 steps forward. And these people are thinking, I want to be able to do business in West Africa. I want my children to have access to Africa, and I want my grandchildren to have access to Africa. So people are thinking long term, and a lot of them are actively in Sierra Leone looking at doing business there and looking, for example, there were people of like a professor at one of the large university hospitals in Germany, a surgeon that was getting that for himself and his family. And then when he was down there, he went to the local hospital, met with other surgeons, etc. We had someone who was a big publisher who was interested in getting citizenship. So what we're seeing is the quality is high because Sierra Leone is actually more expensive than the Sao Tome citizenship by investment program. It's not the cheapest program out there. So immediately, whenever people want to do the Sierra Leone citizenship by investment program, they're not doing it because the cheapest passport or the cheapest whatever. It's people that are making a conscious decision to become a citizen of Sierra Leone and to make a substantial donation.
So on that point, I mean, I think you made a good point as to why people choose Sierra Leone for citizenship by investment. One of the things that I think I wanted to know, because I've now talked about different types of citizenship and I've done some research, and there are a few countries around the world that do citizenship by investment programs, many in the global South, but also in the global North, right? UK has had one. I've mentioned this before under Tony Blair during his time as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Back during the 90s, the United States has a version of it even now. How does the Sierra Leone Citizenship by Investment Program differ from some of the other ones that you've seen, that you've worked on around the continent and even around the world? What is the difference here in this program with Sierra Leone?
It's very similar to a lot of the other programs in the sense you make a donation to become a citizen. I think look, when you take a step back, there are multiple routes to citizenship. You either across the world, you can either be born in a country and get citizenship there because your parents happen to be there as foreigners. You can just be born as a citizen. You can also just immigrate normally through, a job offer or a green card, something like that. You can pay for it, which is the case here in Sierra Leone, or you can, jump a fence, jump the border, stay long enough, get legalized. So this is this sort of immigration where you actually pay for the privilege of becoming a citizen. It's just very easy money for the government, one. And two, you're just getting new citizens that are very high net worth individuals. I mean, think of who is paying $140,000 to become a citizen of Sierra Leone. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. It's only people with a lot of money and people that have vision. So suddenly the country has all of these new citizens around the world that are talking positively about the country, very positively about the country. They became a citizen. They paid a lot of money for it. It's just new ambassadors going around and putting Sierra Leone on the map, and it literally costs Sierra Leone nothing. And it's not like these people are using public services or anything. So it's win-win for everyone. It's just such easy money.
A good point. So one of the things that come up a lot when I talk about these citizenship by investment programs is the fact that previous citizenship by investment programs in other countries led to unsavory characters getting citizenship in other countries, high net worth, unsavory characters, right? Especially some of these European programs from the 90s, where folks who were coming from places, war-torn countries, people who are profiteering off of war, et cetera, were getting citizenship. So I do want to talk about the due diligence process that's required. What is required in terms of due diligence? I know we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but can we talk about what are the due diligence processes? Like, what do you have to turn into the government of Sierra Leone in order to be accepted into this program?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, because there have been issues in the past, and now it's something that the vast majority of citizenship by investment programs do is conduct strict due diligence on the applicants, because the goal is to get good citizens, not people that actually destroy more in value because of drama compared to the money that the government got in. So And just as background, currently there are a lot of active citizenship by investment program. There's like 4 or 5 in the Caribbean. Turkey has one. Egypt has one. Some countries in the South Pacific, El Salvador, Jordan, Cambodia. So it's not something completely unique to Sierra Leone. It's a model that exists. So the due diligence process is outsourced to a company in London specializing in due diligence, and they check all the worldwide databases, they check online. If there's something that's a little fishy, they'll hire local investigators to really get information on the character and what really happened. So they're professional firms that specialize in due diligence reports on people. For example, if you go, Joe, to Mexico and you decide to do business with a Mexican that you don't know, you can hire these due diligence firms that'll do a background check on this person, look at various worldwide databases, ask locally, try to get some information in terms of like who this person really is pretty common in business when you do business internationally. So it's a firm like this that's hired from London to conduct all the due diligence. Some countries do it locally, like Turkey, like Egypt, but they're huge countries with their own very professional security services with tentacles everywhere.
Sure.
But when you're looking at smaller countries, Caribbean, etc., it'd just be hard for the government in Freetown to be able to understand like, oh, what happened to this individual in Germany, etc. So all this due diligence is being done. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really important. I wanted to make sure we covered off on that because that's one of the questions that comes up a lot in citizenship by investment programs globally, but specifically when it comes to the continent of Africa, right? Because, we're all talking about protecting our countries and ensuring the right people are coming. And if a program like this is already in place, we at least want to make sure that it's the right people that are coming, or at the very least, people who are above board. Now, so the question I think that also is, on the top of, I guess, most people's minds is just specifically, what is the step-by-step application process? Like, what do you have to do from start to finish to even apply for citizenship by investment in Sierra Leone?
Yeah, it's not that complicated. You send your passport copy. It all needs to be properly notarized, etc. You send all the documents that show the links to the other people. Birth certificate, marriage certificate, all of that, so that we can trace the wife and the children and the grandparents. Make the family link. You fill out some form, make some declarations. You have to explain this source of funds as well, and then all the background checks get done on you. And if it's fine, you're a go.
Okay, what is that? How long is that process generally?
You're looking at half a year, roughly.
Okay, so about
you'll see online like people saying 2 months, 3 months, but realistically it's more like 5 to 6 months.
Okay. I know this was mentioned in the video, but a lot of people said they couldn't hear it earlier. How does this work in terms of business partners and dependents?
Yeah. So dependents, you just need to, essentially, you can add most people in your family, children under the age of 30, one wife or multiple wives. If you're Muslim, you can also add your siblings, and then your siblings' spouses, as well as your parents and your grandparents. They'll have different fees depending on how far, but yeah, that's all possible. And then the business partner for $30K.
Got it. And there was a good question here, specifics to the program. There was a question about, is the program authorized by the parliament, or is this based on the executive branch?
Right now, it is the executive branch, and they are working on getting authorized by the parliament this year. So this step is going to take place this year.
Got it. And you mentioned a business partner. I know that you've spoken about this before. What are some of the benefits for somebody who's a business owner and wants to do this with a business partner? I felt like there was a conversation that you had about like splitting the cost.
It's a good deal. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
good deal. I mean, so let's say you're two Americans, one of which is or both of African descent, and you just you pay 100 plus 30 for the business partner, 5K for the due diligence fees, 135 for two people. So split the cost in two. It becomes quite affordable. You get the thing by mail. You don't need to go to Sierra Leone.
Got it. So you've already talked about the total cost, including the fees, right? It's an additional $5,000 in fees and outside of the program. Is that right?
That's part of the program. That's the due diligence fee.
Yeah, that's the due diligence fees. Okay. All right. So we've gone through who's actually buying, right? You mentioned some U.S. based folks from Europe. The question that I have, because that's who my target market is. Are you seeing investments or interest from any African Americans, any people of African descent in Europe? Has anybody come to the program when you made your trip, or have you seen any interest from that group thus far?
From African Americans, yes. From Europeans of African descent, no, because most can get an African citizenship because they came to Europe fairly recently.
Okay. Makes sense. So those folks are okay. And in terms of like the kind of the individuals, sophisticated investors using African citizenship as a form of, diversification of their income. I mean, what use cases are you seeing? I know you mentioned some of the people, a professor, a doctor, any investors of any sort. What does that look like?
People who want to do business in Africa and who want easier access to the continent, and more specifically West Africa. Like I'm personally considering applying. I'm still thinking about it, but I'm close to making my decision. I've spent most of my 20s in Africa. I see the future. I see the growth, and I hate applying for all these visas. It's just I travel all the time. And when I want to do a last minute trip, and then it's like, oh, I want to go to Kenya, but no, I need to apply for a visa, and it might take 3-4 days, and then their system is down, and then this, and then that. And then some countries you need an actual physical visa, and you need to go to the embassy, and we all know how these embassies are. So I'm considering it. And also when you do business in Africa, when you whip out an American or a European passport, things become a little bit more complicated. If you whip out an African passport, even if you're Caucasian, things become a little easier.
Interesting. Was not aware of that. Okay, so question on the number of people. There was a question about how many people have gone through this program thus far, and when was it launched again? Can you remind us? When did it officially kick off, and then how many?
It was launched in January, I think January 2025 or so, I think.
Okay, so January 2025. Do you know how many people have gone through the program thus far?
I don't have the exact figures, but it would be a few dozen.
Okay, a few dozen. So so it's been a number of people at more than 20 people have gone through this program.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
So it's not thousands. Sierra Leone is not being flooded. Let's be clear. It is a very niche product, but there is demand. Okay. And I think demand is absolutely going to grow.
Okay, got it. Now, just in terms of like the diaspora specific opportunity, right? I'm thinking about like for African Americans with significant assets, what advantages could might not be immediately obvious for them, right? If they're thinking about diversifying their assets outside of the United States, something that may not be obvious to them, but if they're watching this video and they're thinking about getting citizenship, what advantages might not be immediately obvious that they could potentially benefit from?
Look, I mean, if we're completely honest, no one needs the citizenship. You can go to Sierra Leone and you can do most investments, using a local company. You don't, like, no one fundamentally needs this. If you want to go to do business in Nigeria, just apply for a visa, create a local company. You can do it. The benefit is just it's easier, and then your existing children and then future children, as long as they get, registered at the embassy, will have access to it. So it's a generational move. I think that's what I really want people to understand. When you go through this program, you're not just going through this program for yourself, but you are doing this for your future descendants. So, let's say you're 60, your kids are in their 30s, they're going to start having kids soon. You do this program now, like all your future grandchildren will become citizens of Sierra Leone. They'll have this dual citizenship. They will have access to Africa as Africans, not with a US passport. And I think as part of their identity, in terms of their roots and in terms of business opportunities later on, it'll just open a world of opportunities to them. So I think it's really, some people make this investment just for themselves, sure, but most people think long-term, beyond themselves.
Fair. What safeguards are in place to ensure investors are aligned with Sierra Leone's long-term interests?
I mean, what harm can really the people do? They're not going to be voting. If I become a citizen of Sierra Leone, am I going to start voting? No. Am I going to start getting involved in local politics? No one would listen to me. So it's that's not what people are in it for. If they want to do bad things, they don't need the citizenship.
That's fair, because I think that's one of the questions I think people are trying to figure out is, if someone gets citizenship, how do they make sure it's not extractive and it actually improves the country? I think that's really what the questions I think people are trying to understand. Do you have any thoughts on,
You don't need the citizenship to extract. Just right. Look at all the people that have extracted from Africa. Did they have citizenship? Did they need citizenship to extract? Let's be honest here. They never needed citizenship. They just extracted. So, if people are willing to just pay that sort of money to become citizens, whether they go on and extract or not, they could have done it anyways. So here, no, you're just really looking at people that just want the citizenship. They want potentially just a plan B for themselves. Mm-hmm. That's also a crowd. It's people that don't necessarily want to live in Sierra Leone or in Africa, but they just want a plan B passport in case things were to take a bad turn in their own country. And then they could just use this to go live in Ivory Coast or live in Senegal or go chill in Gambia, or in Cape Verde. So, not I understand the concern, but you do not need citizenship to extract. And there are countless examples.
Yeah. So questions now. Yeah, that makes sense. And so to that point, I think, so your view basically is, look, if you're not going to spend that kind of money to do the things that people have been doing for hundreds of years on the continent, that's your view, basically. It's like, if you're doing this, it's for other reasons, less likely that. Okay. Now, I do have some questions just in terms of your own personal viewpoint. In that video and earlier, you mentioned you were considering potentially going through this program. What makes you think about the potential for going through this program? Or why not? Why or why not, I guess, is the question, really.
Okay, why not is the amount of money. Okay. Yeah. If it was 10,000, I'd already be brandishing my passport. Look, it's a lot of money. But I spent most of my 20s on the continent. I'm now doing more and more business on. Look, I'll just give you an example. I'm investing quite heavily in Kenya. I have a lot of investments there, and I was talking to my tax person there, and they were telling me, sometimes the tax authorities, they say we're gonna audit all the Italians. So they just whip out all the Italian taxpayers and, all the Mzungus, and they're like, okay, we're going to audit all the Italians. And then a few months later, it's like, oh, we're going to audit all the Brits. They audit. They just go through all the files and say, okay, let's audit this one. No one's going to do this for a citizen of Sierra Leone. No one's going to wake up in Nairobi at the Nairobi tax office saying we're going to now audit all the Sierra Leoneans. So it's just, again, it just makes doing business as a as a regional citizen a lot easier. Just as if, Joe, you decided you wanted to do business in Europe, it would be a lot easier to do business in Europe with some European passport. That's what it comes down to.
Okay, that's fair. And as you were talking about that, one thing that came to mind for me was the idea of the types of investments that people are doing, because that's one of the other things I think that comes up as a question. As a country like Sierra Leone, we know that there are natural resources, we know that there are human resources and human capital. And you mentioned that I think one of the people who was applying was someone who was working in the venture space. Can we talk about the types of investments that people are doing in businesses, in industries, those kinds of things, so people can understand, those who are hearing about this program, understanding what people are actually investing in?
Yeah, so the government in Sierra Leone is very forward thinking with regards to this program. They're not just selling a passport, let's be clear. They're selling a citizenship and rolling out the red carpet to foreign investors. They're really trying to encourage so they're when you become a citizen, you have access to the National Investment Board that can then help you with your investments, kind of work through the bureaucracy. I think we all know it's a quite bureaucratic place, and sometimes things just don't work. So they're saying, look, come become a citizen, and then we'll help you with your investments. We'll, create the company for you, and then we'll try to make sure things are a bit easier for you, and we'll guide you through the process of investing in the country. So for now, most people have recently obtained their passports. They're still most just want a plan B. Let's be clear. Most just want a plan B. Most will probably not go to Sierra Leone. They just want a back pocket plan B passport. But many will want to invest in the region. So when we were on this delegation, there were 3 people, just give examples, that were actively looking and making investments. One was looking, that university professor, potentially making investments in healthcare, looking at the potential for a private clinic, for example. Then we had another German that was looking at the potential for bio waste. So all that waste, all that plastic that you see everywhere in Freetown, all that garbage, trying to use this to extract energy from it. And then thanks to the delegation and the NIB, he was put directly in touch with the Ministry of Energy. And then he had access, and then, they were discussing, how can we make this work together? And then another one was an American who has a publishing house and who is looking at potentially creating their West Africa base in Sierra Leone and recruiting local talent to push their publishing business in the region.
Got it. Okay, so really it's extension of businesses in some cases, and in other cases actually entering new markets, right?
Yeah.
I think I've heard people talk about the waste to energy program. I think China's been doing that really well, right? Turning their waste into reusable energy. That's obviously needed in Sierra Leone. So it's interesting to hear that one of the applicants was thinking about doing something to that nature, something of that nature. Okay, so a couple of questions just on the kind of the long-term impact. What in your mind would make this program a long-term success?
Being faster to process applications. If instead of 6 months, you could do it in 3 months, that would be helpful.
Okay. And then what risks should serious applicants evaluate carefully?
Look, in terms of risks, there aren't objectively, what's the risk of becoming a citizen of Sierra Leone? Objectively, not that many. I'd ask the question, what's the risk of becoming a U.S. citizen? Might get drafted to go to Iran for Israel. That's not going to happen in Sierra Leone.
Fair to say. Any other thoughts, anything I didn't ask you that you want to make clear to those watching or considering a citizenship by investment program?
Look, at the end of the day, it's very niche. Let's be honest. It's not right for 99.9% of people, but there is a 0.1% of people for whom this would be a very good mix. And look, the world is changing. Africa really is now rising. It's happening. We're not in the 70s or 80s anymore. The global South is emerging. There's more and more South to South business. China, India with Africa, etc. The continent is becoming increasingly, I'd say, independent as well in its foreign policy. Before, it was very much dependent on the West entirely, and now it has the choice to choose its own path. And we can see some countries that are, playing a bit with the West and playing a bit with the Chinese, and going back and forth, and suddenly dipping a toe in Russia. And this is very healthy for the continent. You can tell that the continent is gradually, getting a real foretaste for sovereignty, which it didn't have for a long time. And as long as it continues in this pathway forward of being rational and looking out for its best interests, it'll do well. And so it would be well recommended. I mean, if you're African American and you have a bunch of money, I think it's one of the greatest gifts that you can leave to your children and grandchildren. We have family offices in the U.S. that are going through the program. They see, their legacy for their future generations, not just as a bunch of assets or culture and a specific, know-how, network, etc., but also the third pillar is citizenships, and having access to more countries across the world, especially in emerging markets.
Got it. I think that's really helpful and useful. Now, there are some comments and questions in the chat that weren't immediately relevant to the discussion at the point in time where I was asking those questions. I do want to get to some of them if you have some time to maybe respond to some of the questions and comments. Some are a bit controversial. So if you're open to it, we can go through them. So we have one here from Aya, who says, the whole aesthetic screams of atrocity and violence of African erasure and turbo crony capitalism, respectively covered in academia and democracy. This painting, okay, I won't say all that. But what are your thoughts on a comment like this?
I'll put it this way: as a European, we're also quite disgusted with what a lot of our governments are up to. They were victimizing Africa for a long time, and now they're victimizing other people. We can see it in the Middle East right now. It's absolutely disgusting. What I can tell you is that the applicants that I've personally met that are going through this program are not at all like this. Because again, the people that go around extracting and abusing do not need a Sierra Leonean passport. They can just bully their way in, throw money around, get things done. This here is just normal upper middle class people, with a few million, so high net worth individuals that just want, a backup plan, want access to do business on the continent. Again, you do not need the passport to commit ill.
Good point. Good point. I think something along those same lines here was we should be careful with these kinds of initiatives. Getting Sierra Leonean citizenship gives access to ECOWAS and other African free trade programs. I guess I'm guessing your answer would be similar to this, the last one.
I mean, it's kind of the point, you know. It's one of the selling points of Sierra Leone with the passport of the citizenship. It's you have access to ECOWAS. Like some people just literally just want it to be able to retire in like Cape Verde and not have to go through their own thing. They can just, as an ECOWAS citizen, fill out that one page, pay their $25, and then they're good. So, yeah, I mean that's part of the that's part of the selling points for sure.
Okay, one last one I see here.
And by the way, that's why I would do Sierra Leone and not Sao Tome, because Sao Tome does not have ECOWAS. Sao Tome just has Sao Tome, and then a bit of like Africa, visa free, easier. But you know, I want ECOWAS. I want West Africa.
Again, just for those who aren't aware, there are certain countries, about 5 countries, if I'm not mistaken, right now, that offer access to their country, either for, you can still sign up for the visa and get the visa for free, or not need a visa at all to visit those countries if you have African citizenship. So to your point that you were just making about the Sao Tome and Principe citizenship, that'll allow you to travel to those countries within the continent. I think maybe it's 5 or 6 countries now that allow you to go there without needing a visa if you have African citizenship. So just to make sure I give that additional context for those who are watching. All right, one last question, it seems, from the audience here. And this one was actually, and I missed this one when we were talking about voting earlier. And one of the points here was that one may not intend to vote, but they can. It's not a reason to get it, but it is a benefit that can be used, especially those into politics and want to see change that benefits themselves in some way. Thoughts on that particular comment?
I mean, if all, few dozen people get together and say we're going to be one voting block, I doubt it's it's going to change much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's too small to matter, even if everyone voted. And we all know how hard it is to vote. Like, it's actually hard to vote. Like, you need to go back to Sierra Leone, and the embassies often have problems. And so if suddenly everyone agrees, oh, let's go back to Sierra Leone and get registered, and it works, and we all vote as a block of 30 people, again, the scale is too small to even matter, statistically speaking.
Yeah, to speak to that point, you do have to register, at least just from my personal experience, because I am a citizen in Sierra Leone, you do have to register to vote at least 8 months or so in advance, and you have to be on the ground to register to vote. You cannot register to vote remotely. And sometimes there's 2 parts to the registration to get your voter card. And you have to be obviously on the ground to vote. From what I have seen, they do not have like mail-in ballots in the same way that the United States has. So, I can be wrong about that. From what my understanding was, that you have to be there in person. I was there on voting day, and I was also late to registering, so I was unable to vote in the last election. One more comment. Someone said they're neutral on the program. My only worry is what happens with the revenues collected. This concern is a question for the government, not the buyers. I hope the money is used for infrastructure, etc. So to that point, has any communication been given to you all about how this revenue will be utilized by any chance?
Yeah, some of the revenue is meant to renovate the, I don't know the specifics, so don't quote me on this, but I know some of the revenue was definitely earmarked to renovate the immigration department building, for example, which is just, if anyone, I mean, you probably went there as part of your process to get citizenship.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like the place is falling apart. So infrastructure.
Yes. Yes. To that point, I really do hope it does go to those infrastructure projects, because many of the government buildings do need upgrades. To your point, I did go to that building on a number of occasions to update my passport, because I got my passport renewed in 2025, and because I had originally gotten in 2020. So my 5-year renewal was in 2025. So I went there in 2025 to get it renewed. And yes, the building does need a serious upgrade. So I really do hope that this funding, that more than 24 folks who've already done it, that's enough even right there to do the funding to take care of it. All right, I know that I asked you this before, but any final thoughts now that I think all the questions and comments have been addressed?
Look, I don't know if anyone in your audience hasn't been yet to Sierra Leone. I really recommend it. It's a beautiful country. I mean, we were there just for 2 weeks and mostly in Freetown. But just go there, go spend some time, travel around the country, see the change. Go to Ghana, go to Accra, see what Sierra Leone could become. It's more advanced. And then go to East Africa, go see Nairobi, go see Kenya. See how well they're doing, see the infrastructure, see everything that's happening. Like Nairobi is really impressive. So just travel around the continent, and things are changing fast, and it's positive. I'm really happy and excited.
So Kellen is asking when you're going to write a book.
Yeah, let's see about that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now I've obviously been following what you've been up to over the last year since this program launched, and I do know that you focus on a lot of different countries around the world. And so for me, what I think is important for everybody watching is, one, I know that this program has been controversial, right? And people have been asking me for a long time to talk about this topic. It has been one that has it's ruffled a lot of feathers and stirred up a lot of controversy, especially with folks who've done the other citizenship program, especially because it got paused. What I came to see this program as is an additional program to a program that was already in place that needed to be worked on. I think I had this conversation on this past Monday. The other program that's in place needs to get figured out and needs to go live. If we have two programs like this, fine. In my opinion, I just think that if people have concerns about people who are not African going through this route, then I think it's on us to find people of African descent who have the means to also go through this route. Because at the end of the day, this program is here. It's obviously been working. A couple dozen people here. It's not going away. So the option that we have is to find other folks that we know can benefit from this program, that we want to see utilizing this program, right? Because at the end of the day, that is what you have. Also, I want to thank you for joining this live stream. I know that there was going to be some controversial questions. You knew that it was coming. I appreciate you agreeing to take some of the more controversial questions and to answer them, because I knew they were coming. And look, this is not a topic that I think is going to be done today. So we'll see if as this program evolves. I'd love to have you on again, maybe to speak more, maybe do a part 2. People have further questions, they can always put them in the comments below. This video will live on the different platforms as a full-on video, so you can always comment there. We could potentially bring Maurice back for a separate conversation to maybe address some of those questions. Also more than happy to answer those questions in the comment section below. So if there's anyone who happens to be in this audience, in my audience, or even in Maurice's audience, that meets the description of what I mentioned previously in terms of who I'm looking for, in terms of anyone looking for this program, there is a link in the description on both Maurice's YouTube channel and then across all of my channels and platforms. So if you are reading the description and you see there's a kind of 2 paragraphs, and then right after that, if you're interested in this program, click this link here. That's what it says on all of my videos. So if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Instagram, if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, the link is in the description. So if you are watching anywhere else, you'll have to go to Facebook or YouTube to get the link. But the link will also be in my Instagram bio. So you can also pop over to the bio there if you're watching on Instagram, so that you can click on the link. It has a short questionnaire where you can answer some questions. One other thing I realized I didn't mention, and you mentioned it, it's a donation. I do want to make that distinction. There's a lot of questions that people have, and I know that we meant to close this out, but there's a lot of questions that people have around the idea of investment versus donation. It is called a citizenship-by-investment program. But to be clear, you're not investing in something to potentially get a return, right? Like, you're not investing in real estate or a business. Can we talk about that? Because there had been other names for this program that have been thrown out there, and it made people think that they are getting something in return as a part of investment. Can we talk about the fact that it's more of a donation than an investment, just for those who are thinking about this program?
Yeah. It's called citizenship by investment because that's just the industry. It's called citizenship by investment. But in reality, it's a pure donation. You're never seeing that money. It's a one way.
I think that's very, very important for those considering this program. Really important to know that. All right. Thanks again, Maurice, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching and participating. Those of you who had questions and comments, I hope that we answered all of your questions. If we didn't, put them in the comments below. If you found this interesting, give this video a thumbs up. If you know anybody who wanted to know more about this program but wasn't able to join the live stream, share this video with them so they can get a chance to watch this and ask their questions if they have it. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're notified every time a new video comes out. We will be doing more videos like this over time. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all on the next video. Bye, guys.